One of the best things that you can do to improve your recording quality and the enjoyment factor of a home studio environment like this is to invest in acoustic panels. There's a couple of ways of doing this. Now, if you've been on websites that offer acoustic panels and treatment like that, it gets really, really expensive. In fact, I'd say on average, you're spending about $300 for packs of panels similar to this, when in fact, I'll show you in this video ways that you can get it done for way less than $100. And these panels that I've had here have lasted me almost 10 years. They've been through 3 different moves of our family, chunk them in the car, chunk them in the truck. They've held up all throughout the years. And the best thing is you can customize these to be exactly what you want them to be for your specific purposes. My name is Chris Green. I hope you enjoy this video. I'm gonna break down this panel step by step so that you can make this yourself. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Now let's get started with the acoustic panels. Also, as a disclaimer, I just wanna say if you're not a hands-on person, like you pretty much know how to use a drill and that's about it, you can definitely tackle this project, but it wouldn't hurt to ask for some help. My father-in-law has an entire wood shop, so that certainly went a long way. But if you have access to stores like Lowe's or Home Depot, your local hardware store, if they have lumber, they probably have a way to cut the wood for you before you even leave the store. So make sure you take advantage of that. So first I want you to take a look at the finished product. So these panels are humongous. They are 50 inches in length. They are 17 inches wide and they are 3 inches deep. Of course, you can make these specifications to whatever you want to see fit. I would highly recommend that you keep it at least 3 inches deep because the depth is where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck when it comes to the panels. Now, the reason I did 3 inches deep is because the Roxul insulation, the stuff that's making up the density of this material, I believe it comes in 2-inch pieces. So you'll see these pallets, and I've got pictures from when I went to the local store today. The panels will come and they'll pretty much compress themselves down to like 2 to 3 inches. So if you're looking to make a heavy investment, most of your money is going to go into the insulation and the wood. The insulation comes in big packs. So if you buy a pack that's typically about $50 or so, just do the math. If you're only building one panel, you could take this panel and easily go from 3 inches up to 9 inches if you want. All right, before we go further, I want to give a shout out to my website, heychrisgreen.com, super original. The purpose of the website is for us to have a place to connect outside of the social media platforms. So you're probably watching this on YouTube. If you go to my website, on the homepage, there's a place to put your email address so you can subscribe to the free newsletter. The newsletter is basically anytime I have a new video or a blog post that's been launched to the website, you'll be the first to know about it with an email. Also, if you're interested in sort of the Patreon sponsorship program, there's an option there for $5 a month. You can help support the channel. So this is not what I do for a living, but it definitely goes a long way for everybody that's interested in sponsoring. You also have access to members only content like this blog post where I go into the exact details and measurements of these panels. Now let's get back to the acoustic panels video. The more depth you have to your panels, the lower the frequencies that you're going to be affecting with the panels. I've had a lot of success with these being 3 inches, specifically in a bedroom environment like this. And I want to recommend that before you build something that's like 100 inches tall, just keep in mind that the room you're in may not be the room that you're in long term. And the worst thing you can do is to wrap this thing in fabric and then have to cut it in half in the future, okay? Better to have a bunch of small pieces that you can stack together. Like if I wanted to take 2 of these 3-inch deep panels, I could stack them on top of each other and have the equivalent of a 6-inch deep panel as well. So just keep all that stuff in mind. Now, if I spin this around, you're gonna see all the warts of this thing. So like I said, we've had this thing for many different moves and renditions. First thing you'll notice are these sawtooth brackets. Okay, so I found these at the store. It's just a couple of bucks or so. You can also, I believe these are ordered on Amazon. You see this a lot with picture frames. So when I'm hanging these on the wall, I am using a drywall screw and a drywall anchor. Or if you can find the studs in the wall, usually one screw will be just fine. So if I find a stud in the wall, I place the screw in, I can just use one of these brackets and one drywall screw is gonna hold this thing up. I would say this is possibly about 10 to 12 pounds in weight. It's not the heaviest stuff in the world, and if you're like me, I'm not swinging stuff around in this room. You don't have to worry about it falling over. In fact, you can see in the corner, I've got two gray panels stacked on top of each other. If you want to know about the effectiveness of these panels, I've done a video in the past when I set up this room where you can see all the frequency readouts and how it messes with the reflections in this room. You can see that video if you want to, but you can get creative with them, okay? These brackets as well, I've used them to bracket these two pieces together. So I basically put a bracket on the side and then one panel screwed on top. The other panel is on the bottom. So these brackets can be used almost like hinges if you want. But that's as far as it goes with hanging them on the wall. When I first made these panels, we had this system where we used basically a runner that you see like going like a transition strip for doors. It was a piece of metal that we cut and it basically fit into a groove. So on the wall, you would have this lip like this, and then the panel would have the opposite end of the lip so that when we hung it, the panel would kind of cinch onto it like that. Benefits of that, instead of using the screw in the bracket, is that if you have something that's longer like this, if you need to shift the panel around a couple inches here or there, you can do that. But stick with, these are called sawtooth brackets. Get a few of those for hanging them. And then of course you can see we have the fabric. So the fabric has changed. You're gonna see as soon as I start taking this stuff off, you'll see this green color behind, which is pretty nice. Actually, I like the way they look together, but originally we had these wrapped in this like hunter green color, and then decided I wanted to change the color, and instead of taking off this green fabric, which would have gotten very messy because it's glued on, we just decided to get some gray felt from Joann, which is like a local crafting store. You can get your own fabric and then wrap them as well. And then you can see this is my wife's handiwork because the new fabric has been stapled on, okay? It looks terrible. You can of course take your own time with this to make it how you want it to look, but essentially we're folding it on the corners so that if you look at the top, we have these nice little fold lines that look very symmetrical. And then from the front, of course, you're hardly seeing them at all when they're hanging up on it. So another good thing about using felt is that it really doesn't show that many wrinkles. If you go with something that's more breathable, like a cotton material, of course you can get more designs and it can look really cool. I would be concerned about that insulation stuff because this insulation, especially when you're handling it, you want to have some sort of mask on to protect you from breathing in a lot of that fiberglass. But I like the felt because again, I wanted these to last as long as they possibly can. Yes, you'll see some lumps every now and then, or it'll get a few pieces of dust on it that looks like it's a little bit dirty, but you can simply take those off. So it's a good material to use. You can just get a few yards of this cut at your local craft store. And as you can see, also there's this screen mesh, and what that's doing is it's holding in the insulation so the insulation doesn't have anywhere to flop around on the inside. This roll of screen protector I'll show on screen. I got a picture from this morning. You can get a big roll of it, cut it to size, and simply staple it to your outer frame. The insulation I'm using on these panels is a Roxul insulation. It's very similar to Owens Corning, so you see a lot of stuff online. I believe that Owens Corning is going to do a better job of acoustically treating your room if you're using that for panels, but from what I heard, and again, this has been like 10 years, but the Owens Corning stuff, you definitely need to be careful about wearing gloves and a mask because the Owens Corning material, that fiberglass, it can get into your lungs and that's not a good thing at all. So if you can find this Roxul stuff, it's very similar in price. You'll get a big bundle of it, and I can't remember how many sheets you get, but essentially this is one big sheet of Roxul insulation and it's sitting inside the box frame. On both sides, you've got this screen mesh that's just keeping it in place so that way it doesn't sag or warp out of place. All that being said, it's time to take off the fabric. Now, what's holding on the fabric mostly are these staples that we have in place, but we also use this spray adhesive glue. So as you're putting on the fabric, if you have someone to hold the fabric, the other person can spray the glue, lay the fabric over. Especially when I get to the green fabric on the inside, you'll be able to see how much glue there is. I hope I'm able to remove it so you can see it. Kind of worried about that, but I've got some tools to help me out. So let's start disassembling this. I'm going to take off these sawtooth brackets and then I'm going to start removing these staples on the panels. Okay, this thing has a ton of glue, a ton of staples, but I tore off enough so that you can see what's happening on the inside skeleton. So as you can imagine, all 4 of these corners on the back side look exactly the same. So we have this lip effect. Just imagine that this square box goes all the way around. We have a top piece. As you can see, we'll break out the measuring tape here. Top piece is 3 inches by 17 by 1 inch. So all of these planks of wood are about 1 inch in thickness. And the top piece here, we've got it running all the way across the top so that the top is nice and flat. It has a screw. You can see it's covered up in glue right there, but there's 1 screw going straight down on either side. And that piece is connecting the top piece to the side pieces. And then on the side, you can see there is a screw placed in right here so that it has this lip piece. On the front of the panels, there's actually not a lip. So if you can see that there, all we have is the screen protector. Then you have this rectangle frame built out all the way around. And then on the back side, you have this lip. And the lip serves a couple of purposes. It's going to keep the insulation from sagging out the back, but it also gives you a place where when you are hanging the sawtooth anchors, whenever you're placing this on the wall, you've got some wood to drill into. And then hopefully you find the joists or you find the studs in the walls when you're hanging your panels, because you really, I mean, you can use the drywall anchors if necessary, but with these things being 17 inches in width, you should be able to find a stud somewhere on the wall, okay? So, wow, this is a lot more than I thought, but this spray-on glue that I found at the store, I'll place that on the screen for you to see as well with the prices. I definitely think it's good to glue at first, but then if you can get a staple gun, don't just use like a regular staple. You need one that can staple into wood pretty easily. The staples are going to keep it from eventually just coming untethered as much. And as you can see, I went crazy with the staples. You could do a whole lot better job with stapling it in the future. It looks like my wife, she's always doing the fabric stuff, but as you can see, there's this little fold over, this flap that happens on the top of each of the corners. So essentially we have this coming over like that, and then it's been trimmed so that it's as straight a line as possible. And what that does is, without all the messiness, it gives it a much cleaner top. So essentially it's wrapping up and around this way. So the fabric goes up and over. And then on the sides, what we have is she cut this way so that the side panel can lay flat like this, and then the top goes over like that. So as you can see, we have this kind of deal happening. I guess I should do like this. And that makes for nice clean edges. All right, so we need to put together our shopping list of the materials. So if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, if you live in the States, or any local hardware store that sells wood and insulation, those are gonna be your big ticket items. You can purchase these things online, but honestly, if you can find a lumber yard or somewhere that has the availability to cut the pieces for you in the store, it's totally worth it. Like if you go to Lowe's, they usually will do this for free. Now, if you're asking them to do like 12 different cuts on one piece of wood, you might be abusing the system. But generally speaking, you can get a big piece of wood and they'll cut it to size. You're going to be mainly spending your money on insulation and wood. Like I said, with the insulation, I was able to find the Owens Corning. That's going to be the most popular with whatever store you go to, but also you need to wear a mask. There was a piece that was wide open. So it says that there are 8 pieces. So think about this. If you're using one sheet of insulation per panel, you can spend $50 on one pack of Owens Corning material, and that essentially gives you 8 panels right there. So that's pretty good. 8, like 50 divided by 8, was that like 5.5, 6 panels? You're gonna be able to get 6 panels out of it. I'm not good at math. I was a music major, so go easy on me. Each of these panels are 3.5 inches thick, which is great. They're 15 inches wide and 47 inches long, which would be great for these panels as well. And you're thinking to yourself, why are the panels 50 inches? Well, they're 50 inches because you have to account for the wood that makes up the frame. So give yourself an inch or so. And then they are 3.5 inches thick, but these things are going to be compressed a lot. So if you can make a 4-inch panel, that would be great. You can put a 3.5 inch panel. That might be too much space in there. So these are 3 inches. It's pretty snug, but like I said, we're using the screen protector to keep the Owens Corning in place, so it maintains its shape. So those go for about $50 for your insulation, and that's going to get you 8 panels. I don't believe you can buy these individually, and make sure you don't buy the blow-in insulation. You need these insulations to come in panels or sheets, and it should say on the outside of the packages how many pieces it comes in. So look for Roxul if it's available, or go with Owens Corning if you can. Next were the sawtooth hangers. These were about $2 or so, and looks like they came with a pack of 5. So you could get 5 panels, just get 1 sawtooth per panel. That'll be for hanging. Drywall anchors and such, make sure you have plenty of those on hand. The screws that I'm using on this panel, these are just basic drywall screws. I'll go ahead and measure this one out here. Using about 1.5 inches. So these drywall screws are 1.5 inches, and you need to make sure you get the pointed tip. Okay, the pointed tip's gonna be great. Make sure you pre-drill your holes before you slam them in there. Get the drywall anchors, because just in case you miss a stud or whatever. I took some pictures where the guy was cutting some wood for me. So let's talk about wood for a second. If you are in a bind, with most hardware stores, you should be able to ask if they have free stuff. So typically when these stores like Lowe's, Home Depot, when they get big shipments in, they'll have these sheets of this really terrible, it's not even like wood, it's kind of just like paper that's been compressed together, but it comes in a panel about this size. Now this stuff is terrible because, as you can see, the edges are all rough. It's usually kind of wavy, but the cool thing is this stuff was free. So he actually cut it for me. He said he wasn't going to do any measurements and stuff, but he was cutting it down to size so that I could fit it in our vehicle to bring it home. So this stuff could technically be used. You could get some free wood, just ask around, and just about every week these stores are getting shipments in. This stuff is really hard to work with though, so make sure you have some sort of table saw. You get your exact pieces together. Now the sheets that we used for making these panels was MDF. MDF wood is not that expensive. You definitely don't want to get stuff like oak, or unless you're going to have like the wood showing on your panels, I don't see a reason why you would get any sort of expensive wood. Just go to your local lumber shop or hardware store, ask them for the cheapest wood that they have, maybe a pine or some sort of MDF material. And then, like I said, get them to cut the pieces in the store. So the good thing about these panels is all of the panels pretty much have the exact same width. So we're cutting them to about a 3.5 inch or 4 inch width, and then we just need different lengths. So the lip piece that's on the back side of the panel, the top piece that's on the panel, the bottom piece on the panel, and the sides, they all have the same width to them, which is on these about 4 inches or so. And then you just need certain lengths. You need a length for the sides, you need a length for the top piece, and you need a length for the inside piece as well. But that's going to be your lumber. Of course, the prices are going to fluctuate all sorts of places. Just make sure you're not getting like outdoor wood. You don't need the treated stuff for like decks and all of that. Just go to somebody who works in the store, ask them for the cheap stuff for like working on projects or crafts, and they'll have that there. The next thing is the lining, which is the screen protector that goes in to hold the stuff up. I found this stuff relatively cheap. It was about $8 for a roll, and I believe one roll is going to get you the front and back of a panel. Looks like they're 36 by 48 inches. Oh, 84. Okay, sorry, it was upside down. So 36 by 84, that's going to get you one of your panels or so. You can look, there's a whole section for screen doors and liners. Just get the cheapest one available, because you're really just using it to hold the stuff in place. And the good thing is that it's got holes all over it, so it's not really going to affect the acoustic properties of your stuff. And then comes the glue. You can use like the squeeze glue if you want to, like maybe the tack tight bond. Could use that maybe, but we used the spray on, and I believe it was Loctite, which is a spray adhesive. So make sure you check out the spray glue. If you're going to use staples and you got some help, you could probably get away with just getting a staple gun and that will be fine. And of course, like I mentioned, the drywall screws, make sure you have a box of these. Comes in handy for all sorts of projects around the house. So typically, I'm gonna say like each of these panels, you should be spending like way less than $50 per panel. Like I said, these things are lasting me 10 years and 3 different moves that we've gone through. So you're definitely gonna get some value out of putting in that initial investment. Most of you out there, you're probably spending more money on a guitar pedal than you are the panels in your room. You can definitely get this thing done as a weekend project. And if you got somebody to help, a couple extra hands, you can knock it out in a couple of hours if you need to. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you found value in this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons. And of course, head over to heychrisgreen.com, sign up for the free newsletter. And if you want to sponsor the channel, you can jump over and become a sponsor today. You'll have access to the exact detailed blueprint of these panels that you can follow along with this video to build your own acoustic panels. Thanks so much for watching. My name's Chris Green. I'll see you at the next video.